Sarah had never seen her daughter laugh so freely, and watching little Mira chase butterflies through the rooftop garden made her forget about the gray news reports playing on every screen below. The evening sun painted the Singapore skyline in shades of orange and gold, and somewhere up there, beyond the clouds, her husband Dren was finishing his shift at the orbital shipyards. He would be home soon, they would have dinner together. Life was simple and good. Humanity had spread to 17 colony worlds by the year 2347, but Earth remained home. 12 billion souls lived on the blue planet, building families, growing food, creating art. In the grand politics of the galaxy, humans were considered a minor species. They had no great fleets, no ancient technologies, no seat of importance in the Galactic Assembly. The elder races tolerated them the way one tolerates small insects, acknowledging their existence without truly seeing them. The Draven hegemony saw them differently. The Draven were conquerors, insectoid beings with chitinous armor and compound eyes that reflected no warmth. They had dominated the stars for 10,000 years. 40 species had fallen beneath their claws, their worlds stripped, their populations enslaved or destroyed. The Draven did not negotiate, they did not warn, they simply took what they wanted, and on that warm evening, they wanted Earth. The sky tore open. 3,000 warships emerged from fold space directly above the planet, each vessel the size of a mountain, blotting out the stars like a spreading disease. Sarah grabbed Mira and pulled her close, staring upward at shapes that should not exist, that could not exist. Her tablet buzzed with emergency alerts, but the words made no sense. This was not happening, this could not be happening. The Draven broadcast a single message to every frequency on Earth and beyond. Their voice was cold, mechanical, utterly without feeling. Humanity is claimed, resistance is biological. Error. Earth's orbital defense platforms opened fire. They had been built to stop pirates and small raiders, not armadas. The platforms lasted 17 minutes, their destruction lit up the night sky like false dawn, and then the bombardment began. Kinetic strikes fell like rain, each impact was a city dying. Plasma beams carved trenches across continents, boiling oceans and turning forests to ash. Sarah watched the horizon disappear behind a wall of fire that rolled toward them faster than thought. She heard screaming, realized it was her own. Mira was crying, asking for her father, asking why the sky was burning. Sarah's communicator crackled with Dren's voice, broken by static and distance. Run north, the shelters, I love you both, I love. The signal died, she never heard from him again. The Galactic Assembly convened in emergency session as Earth burned. Representatives of 100 species gathered in their grand chamber, watching footage of human cities vanishing beneath fire. Ambassador Lyra Cade of Humanity stood at the podium. Her voice was steady despite the tears streaming down her face. She begged for intervention, for ships, for anything. The elder races expressed concern, they offered condolences, they explained that the Draven were too powerful, that intervention would risk wider war, that Earth was, regrettably, too insignificant to justify such danger. The vote was 847 to 1, humanitarian aid would be offered after hostilities concluded, nothing more. Lyra stared at the assembly, at beings who could have helped and chose not to. Her final words before walking out were quiet but clear, you will remember this day, and you will be ashamed. The bombardment continued for 6 hours, when it finally stopped, for 2 billion humans were dead. The surface was a wasteland of fire and ash. The Draven did not land troops, did not occupy territory. They simply declared victory and moved on to other conquests, leaving a token fleet to watch the corpse of human civilization. But humanity was not dead. Deep beneath the Swiss Alps, in bunkers built generations ago for wars that never came, military commanders gathered around flickering screens. General Yuki Tanaka studied casualty reports with eyes that had gone cold. She was 63 years old, had spent her career preparing for threats that seemed theoretical. Now those theories had become nightmares. A young officer asked the question everyone was thinking, what can we do against such an enemy? General, they destroyed us in hours. Tanaka did not answer immediately. She looked at the faces around her, saw grief and rage and despair in equal measure. These were the survivors, the ones who had made it underground before the fire came. They numbered in the millions, scattered across hidden bunkers on every continent. It was not enough to rebuild what was lost, but it was enough for something else. We survive, she said finally. We hide, we let them think we are broken, and we use every moment. They give us to prepare for what? Tanaka's voice dropped to something barely above a whisper, something that made the officers lean forward to hear. They killed billions of our people, they burned our cities, they murdered our children, and the galaxy watched and did nothing. She straightened, and her eyes held a light that was not quite sane, not quite mercy. We will make them pay for every single life. We will teach the Draven what it means to anger humanity, and when we are finished, the entire galaxy will learn to fear. The species they abandoned, across the burning earth, human settlements went dark, not destroyed, but hiding, waiting, in the ashes of civilization. Something new was being born, something patient, something angry, something that would shake the stars. The Draven had made a mistake. They had assumed that destroying Earth meant destroying humanity. They had not understood that humans were not like other species. They did not surrender when beaten, they did not accept defeat, they remembered, and they planned. The galaxy would learn this lesson. In time, they would all learn. 5 years of darkness had taught Mira how to move without making sound. The tunnels of Bunker 17 stretched for kilometers beneath what had once been northern Canada, and every child who lived there learned early that silence meant survival. Draven scanning drones still swept the surface, hunting for signs of life. A single noise in the wrong place could bring death from above. Mira was 11 now, tall for her age. With her father's dark eyes and her mother's stubborn jaw, she worked in the hydroponic gardens during morning shifts, tending vegetables that grew under artificial lights. In the afternoons, she studied engineering from salvaged tablets, learning about machines and physics and the mathematics of destruction. The teachers said she had talent. Her mother said nothing, just held her tighter each night. Sarah had changed in the years underground. The woman who once laughed at butterflies now worked 16-hour shifts in the communications center, monitoring Draven transmissions, searching for weaknesses. Her eyes had grown hard, her smiles rare. She still loved her daughter, but love had become tangled with something darker, something that whispered of revenge. The galaxy believed humanity was finished. News reports from distant civilizations described Earth as a graveyard world, a cautionary tale about the price of weakness. The Draven had moved on to other conquests. Leaving only a small fleet to guard their trophy, they checked in occasionally, scanning for survivors, finding nothing but ash and silence. They did not think to look beneath the mountains. General Tanaka stood in a cavern so deep that the weight of stone above felt like a physical presence. Around her, engineers worked on machines that hummed with barely contained power. She was 68 now, gray-haired and thin, but her mind remained sharp as a blade. Every day for 5 years, she had pushed humanity toward a single goal. Every decision, every resource, every waking moment served that purpose. Chief Engineer Pavel Volkov approached with a tablet displaying technical readouts. He was a large man with gentle hands, the kind of person who should have been building bridges or designing homes. Instead, he had spent half a decade creating weapons that would make the stars weep. The full drives are ready, he said quietly. All 400 ships are operational. The weapons systems are fully integrated. Tanaka studied the data. Fold space technology, reverse engineered from captured Draven scouts at the cost of dozens of lives. It allowed ships to cross vast distances instantly, appearing without warning, striking before defenses could react. The Draven had used it to conquer the galaxy. Now humanity would use it for something else entirely. And the special weapons? She asked. Pavel's face tightened. The fold bombs can destabilize stars. The planet crackers can shatter worlds down to their cores. Everything works as designed. He paused. General, when we use these, there will be no going back. The things we're about to do are exactly what they did to us. Tanaka finished. Do you remember what Earth looked like before, Pavel? Do you remember sunlight? Grass? Children playing in parks? Her voice hardened. I remember everything, and I want the Draven to experience that same loss, multiplied by every world they have. The doctrine of total response had been debated only once. Some commanders argued for surgical strikes, targeted assassinations, careful pressure. Others suggested negotiation, hoping to find terms that might end the conflict peacefully. Tanaka had listened to every argument. Then she had shown them footage from the bombardment, the screaming, the fire. The way cities simply ceased to exist. The vote was unanimous. There would be no half measures. Intelligence operatives had spent years infiltrating galactic trade networks, surgically altered to resemble other species. They gathered information about Draven territory. The hegemony controlled 200 worlds, but their homeworld system was Kethrin, for heavily populated planets orbiting a Trinaris star. The heart of their empire, the place where their leaders lived and their history was kept. That was where humanity would strike first. Sarah intercepted a transmission during her night shift, routine Draven communications about livestock processing of human survivors found on the surface. She read the words 3 times, feeling something crack inside her chest. When Mira found her crying in their small quarters later, Sarah made a decision. She told her daughter everything: the war, the plans, the hatred she had carried for 5 years. Mira listened without speaking. When her mother finished, the girl's face was calm, far too calm for an 11-year-old. "Will I be able to help?" she asked. "When it's time?" Sarah should have said no, should have protected her daughter from what was coming. Instead, she nodded. "When you're older, when you're ready." In the hollow core of a dead moon, humanity's secret fleet waited in perfect darkness. 400 ships, small by galactic standards, crewed by volunteers who understood they might never return. Each vessel carried weapons designed for a single purpose: not victory, not conquest, but annihilation. Ambassador Lyra Cade recorded a message in her quarters. She had aged 20 years in 5, her hair white, her face lined with grief, but her voice remained strong as she spoke to a galaxy that had abandoned her people. "You left us to die," she said. "You watched our cities burn and offered nothing but words. Now watch what the dead can do. Watch what rises from the ashes of Earth. And remember, when the screaming starts, that you could have prevented this. You chose not to." The fleet began powering up. Engines hummed with accumulated fury. In the darkness between stars, humanity prepared to teach the galaxy a lesson it would never forget. The Draven had awakened something they did not understand, something that had spent 5 years doing nothing but preparing for this moment. The silence was about to end. The Draven officer on duty noticed the sensor anomaly at precisely 0347 local time. Small contacts, barely visible, had appeared in the outer reaches of the Kethrin system. He studied the readings with mild curiosity rather than concern. The contacts were too few to be a fleet, too small to be warships, probably refugees from some conquered world, or perhaps pirates looking for easy targets. He flagged the anomaly for routine investigation and returned to his meal. That decision would cost his species everything. General Tanaka stood on the bridge of the flagship Remembrance, watching the Draven homeworld grow larger on the display screens. 4 planets orbited the Trinaris star of Kethrin, each one teeming with billions of Draven, their cities sprawling across continents, their orbital stations glittering like jewels. This was the heart of the hegemony, the sacred place where their empire had been born 10,000 years ago. "All ships report ready," the communications officer announced. "Weapons are armed, fold bombs are prepped for deployment." Tanaka nodded slowly. She had imagined this moment every night for 5 years, had rehearsed the words she would say, the orders she would give. Now that it was here, she felt nothing but cold certainty. Begin the operation. The Draven defense fleet noticed the human ships too late. By the time commanders realized the contacts were not refugees but warships, the first fold bombs were already screaming toward the primary star. The weapons did not explode in any conventional sense. They created cascading ruptures in fold space itself, tearing holes in reality within the star's core. The sun began to die. Radiation burst outward in violent waves. The star's surface rippled and cracked, spewing matter into space. Draven astronomers watched in horror as their home sun, stable for billions of years, started tearing itself apart. Emergency broadcasts flooded every channel, demanding answers, begging for explanation. No one could tell them what was happening because no one had ever seen anything like this. A single human transmission cut through the chaos. Ambassador Lyra Cade's recorded message played on every Draven frequency, every civilian screen, every military channel. Her face was calm, her voice steady. She did not make demands, she did not offer terms, she simply began reading names, names of human cities: Singapore, Mumbai, Cairo, London, Sao Paulo, names of colonies: New Helsinki, Armstrong Base, Frontier. 7. Names of ships, of stations, of schools and hospitals and homes. The list went on and on, thousands of names, each one a wound, each one a reason. "These are the places you destroyed," Lyra said when the list finally ended. "These are the people you killed. We are here to balance the scales." Human ships descended on the 4 planets of the Kethran system. They ignored the Draven warship scrambling to intercept. Flying past them as if they did not exist, planet cracker missiles struck fault lines, shattering continents, releasing magma that swallowed cities whole. Orbital bombardment platforms fired on population centers, burning everything below. The Draven finally understood, this was not an attack, this was not war, this was extinction. Mira flew a bomber in the second wave. She was 16 now, 5 years older than when she had learned to hate. Her hands were steady on the controls as she watched a Draven city burn, millions of beings dying in seconds, their screams cut short by fire and pressure and the simple physics of destruction. For a moment, something in her chest felt sick, wrong. Then she remembered her father, his last message, cut short by static, his body, never found, just ash among billions of ashes. She remembered her mother's tears, the years underground, the darkness that had become her entire world. Her finger tightened on the trigger, she fired again. The Galactic Assembly received live footage of the attack within hours. Representatives gathered in stunned silence, watching the impossible unfold. The species they had dismissed as irrelevant, the civilization they had abandoned to die, was erasing the most powerful empire in known space. One elder ambassador spoke the thought on everyone's mind, his voice barely a whisper. "They were farmers and artists. What have the Draven awakened?" No one had an answer. As the Draven star entered its final death throes, General Tanaka ordered the fleet to withdraw, but not before broadcasting one last message to the surviving Draven ships. Her voice was ice and stone. "We will not occupy your worlds. We will not enslave your people. We will simply ensure you have no worlds left, no people left. This is mercy, human mercy. The kind you showed us when you burned our earth and killed our children. Remember this. Tell whatever survivors remain. Humanity remembers, and humanity repays." The star collapsed, then it exploded. The resulting nova sterilized everything within 3 light minutes. The 4 planets of Kethran, home to 4 billion Draven, ceased to exist. Their history, their culture, their sacred places, all reduced to expanding clouds of superheated gas. Human casualties in the operation, 12 ships, 3,000 personnel. The Draven hegemony had lost its heart, its leadership, its homeworld. Surviving fleets scattered in panic. Some surrendered to the Galactic Assembly, begging for protection. Others fled into the darkness between galaxies, hoping distance might save them. None understood what had just happened. None could process how a species they had crushed so easily had returned with such terrible fury. General Tanaka received reports of Draven colonies requesting terms of surrender. She studied the messages for a long moment. Then she looked at the casualty figures from Earth, still being counted after 5 years, 6, 7 billion dead. She thought of Sarah, of Mira, of every human who had lost everything. Her response was simple: "Tell them we are not accepting surrenders, not yet. They have 197 worlds remaining. We have time." The counterattack had only begun. Trade ships stopped traveling within 50 light-years of Earth. The change happened overnight, as if some invisible barrier had been raised around human space. Merchants who had once laughed at humanity's weakness now plotted courses that added weeks to their journeys, just to avoid any chance of encountering human vessels. Fear had become the new currency of the galaxy, and humanity was suddenly very wealthy. 1 month after the destruction of Kethran, the Galactic Assembly sent a diplomatic delegation to Earth. 17 ambassadors from the most powerful civilizations, beings who had ignored human pleas for help, now traveled to the burned world seeking audience. They waited 3 weeks in orbit, watching reconstruction drones crawl across scarred continents, before receiving a response. "We are busy," the message said, "nothing more." Human fleets continued striking Draven colonies with mechanical precision. Each attack followed the same pattern. Ships appeared without warning. Weapons fired until nothing remained, then silence. No occupation, no prisoners, no mercy. The Draven who had once conquered 40 species found themselves hunted across their own territory, their empire crumbling faster than anyone thought possible. Draven refugees flooded into neutral systems, bringing stories that spread like plague. They spoke of human ships that moved like ghosts, appearing from nowhere, leaving only ash. They described weapons that cracked planets like eggs, that turned stars into bombs. They begged other species for protection, for shelter, for anything. No one helped them. The galaxy had learned what happened to those who stood against humanity. Ambassador Lyra Cade finally agreed to address the Galactic Assembly. The chamber fell silent as she walked to the same podium where she had begged for assistance 5 years ago. She looked older now, her hair completely white, her face carved with lines of grief and rage, but her voice remained strong. You asked why. We did not stop at Catherine, she said. You asked why we continue. The answer is simple. She paused, letting the silence stretch. You taught us that the galaxy respects only one thing, power. The Draven had power, so you let them burn our world. We were weak, so our children's screams meant nothing to you. Her eyes swept across the assembly, cold and hard. We learned your lesson. We became what we needed to become. And now you sit in judgment of methods you taught us to use. No one responded. No one dared. The debate within human leadership grew heated as the campaign continued. Admiral Chen Wei presented casualty figures to the council, showing maps covered in red markers. 18 billion Draven dead, he said quietly. We are approaching the extinction threshold. If we continue, there will be no Draven left. Is that truly what we want? General Tanaka listened to the arguments. Some commanders spoke of mercy, of the difference between justice and genocide. Others argued that stopping now would only allow the Draven to rebuild, to return, to threaten Earth again. The debate lasted hours, voices rising and falling. Finally, Tanaka raised her hand for silence. She activated a screen showing footage from the original bombardment, cities burning, people running, children screaming, the assembly watching and voting to do nothing. She let the footage play for 5 full minutes. The vote to continue operations was 7-3. Mira struggled with dreams. Every night, she saw Draven cities burning, heard the sounds she imagined they made as they died. She was not sure if the sounds were real or something her mind had created. Either way, they followed her into waking hours. She flew missions during the day and lay awake at night, staring at the ceiling of her small quarters. She visited the memorial caverns on Earth during a brief leave. Holographic displays showed images of the dead, billions of faces cycling through in endless rotation. Her father's image appeared, Dren, with his kind eyes and gentle smile. She reached toward the light as if she could touch him. I hope you would understand, she whispered. I hope you would forgive me. She did not believe he would. She reported for duty the next morning anyway. The Draven remnant attempted to negotiate through neutral parties. A delegation of their surviving leaders sent a message offering complete surrender. They would pay reparations, disarm completely, submit to whatever terms humanity demanded. They only asked for the killing to stop. The message reached General Tanaka. She read it carefully, considering each word. Then she composed a response. You could have offered Earth surrender. You could have asked for tribute. You could have taken whatever you wanted and let our people live. Instead, you chose extinction. You taught us this method. We are excellent students. The human fleet arrived at the 87th Draven world 3 days later. Captain Pavel Volkov Jr. commanded the assault group. His father had designed the weapons they carried, had spent years perfecting instruments of destruction while hoping they would never be used. Now the son carried that legacy forward. Pavel looked at the planet below, an agricultural world. Farms stretched across green continents. Small cities dotted the landscape. There was no military value here, just food production and families trying to survive. His weapons officer waited for the order. For a long moment, Pavel hesitated. These were not soldiers. They were not the ones who had ordered Earth's destruction. They were just people, trying to live, just as humans had been trying to live before the fire came. But orders were orders, and Earth had burned too. Fire, he said. That night, he could not sleep. He wondered if victory would feel like anything at all. The Galactic Assembly released a statement condemning the original Draven attack on Earth. It called for humanity to show restraint and accept reasonable surrenders. Ambassador Cade read the statement, laughed bitterly, and filed it with the thousands of ignored pleas humans had sent before the war. On her desk sat a star map showing Draven territory. One by one, the lights were going out. World by world, humanity's shadow grew. The last Draven world did not fall to human weapons. When the fleet arrived at Colony Verith, the final stronghold of a dying species, they found only silence. Scanning drones swept across empty cities, through abandoned homes, past tables still set for meals never eaten. The Draven had chosen their own end. Facing certain extinction, they had decided to deny humanity the satisfaction of delivering the final blow. General Tanaka received the report in her quarters. She read the words 3 times. Searching for something to feel, satisfaction, perhaps, or relief, or even regret. Instead, there was only emptiness, a hollow space where purpose used to live. The enemy was gone, the war was over, she had won. It did not feel like winning. The final count took weeks to compile. The Draven hegemony, erased, 200 worlds destroyed or abandoned, 23 billion dead. An entire species reduced to scattered refugees hiding in the darkest corners of the galaxy, afraid to even speak their own language. Human losses in the campaign, 47 ships, 14,000 personnel. Earth's original losses remained unchanged, 7 billion civilians, mostly in the first 6 hours. A young statistician presented these numbers to the council, her hands trembling as she spoke. When she finished, no one moved, no one breathed. The weight of what humanity had done pressed down on the room like a physical force. General Tanaka finally broke the silence. We did what was necessary. Her voice was steady. But her eyes were not. The mathematics of revenge are simple. They killed billions, we killed billions. The scales are balanced. No one believed her. She did not believe herself. The Galactic Assembly convened to formally recognize the end of the conflict. For the first time in recorded history, the session proceeded without debate. No species raised objections, no amendments were proposed, no procedural questions delayed the vote. The recognition passed unanimously, and then the representatives simply left. There was no networking, no diplomatic maneuvering, no discussion of future relations, just silence, spreading through the chamber like fog. The footage was broadcast across civilized space. Billions of beings watched the most powerful governments in the galaxy sit in terrified quiet, afraid to even look at each other. They understood what humanity had demonstrated. A minor species, dismissed and ignored, had erased one of the oldest empires in existence, and they had done it efficiently, methodically, without hesitation. The message was clear: never again. Earth began rebuilding. Reconstruction drones worked day and night, clearing rubble, planting seeds, slowly transforming the wasteland back into something livable. The sky remained gray with ash that would take decades to clear. But for the first time in years, children played on the surface. Their laughter echoed across the ruins. Strange and wonderful, Mira returned home for the first time since the bunkers. She walked through the ruins of New Singapore, past twisted metal and melted glass, searching for something she could not name. The apartment building where she had lived was gone, reduced to a crater filled with rainwater. Her father's grave, unmarked and unknown, lay somewhere beneath her feet. She knelt in the rubble and cried. Not for her father, not for the billions dead on both sides, but for the girl she had been before the fire came. That child had chased butterflies and believed the world was good. She had died the same day her father did. What remained was something harder, something that had learned to kill without flinching. General Tanaka announced her retirement 1 month after the war's end. Her final address was brief, delivered to a small audience in an underground chamber. We did what was necessary, she said again. I do not apologize, but I am tired, and I want to remember what peace feels like before I die. She retreated to a small house in what had once been rural Japan. She planted a garden. She did not watch the news. She did not answer messages from the council or the assembly or the countless historians who wanted her story. Sometimes, late at night, she saw Draven cities burning when she closed her eyes. She never told anyone about the dreams. A century later, humanity had become the dominant power in the galactic region. Human ships traveled freely through territories that had once belonged to ancient empires. No species challenged human interests, no government questioned human decisions. The story of the Draven was taught in schools across 1,000 civilizations, not as history, but as warning. A common phrase emerged in galactic diplomacy, spoken whenever tensions rose between powers. Remember what the humans did when they were small and weak. Imagine what they would do now, on Earth. A monument stood where the United Nations had once met. It was simple, black stone rising from green grass, bearing no names, no dates, no victories, just a single inscription carved in 100 languages. We were here, we were attacked, we survived, let this be enough. Visitors came from across the galaxy to see it. They stood in silence, taking no recordings. Some left flowers, others simply stared. All left changed. Mira visited the monument when she was old. Her grandchildren played nearby. The first generation to grow up under open skies without fear, one of them, a small girl with curious eyes, asked. About the war, about the Draven, about what had really happened. Mira looked at the blue sky above, at clouds that no longer carried ash, at a world that had been burned and rebuilt and finally healed. She thought about her father, about the girl she had been, about the choices she had made. We were hurt very badly, she said at last, so we hurt them back, and now no one will ever hurt us again. The girl considered this, but was it right? Mira did not answer immediately. She watched her grandchildren chase each other through the grass, heard their laughter echo across the memorial grounds. Somewhere in the distance, a ship lifted off toward stars that had learned to fear the small blue world called Earth. I don't know, she said finally, but it was human. The galaxy remained silent, watching, waiting, remembering, and humanity walked among the stars, neither heroes nor villains, just survivors, carrying the weight of what they had done into an uncertain future. It was enough, it had to be,